I mean, you should be grateful we tolerate you at all. That's the sentence. Not a maybe, not a slip, not a misquote. Verbatim, word for word. Spoken in a climate-controlled HR conference room that smelled like cucumber hand sanitizer and Target ambition. Right as I finished explaining 12 years of results, late nights, impossible clients, and single-handedly keeping $8.4 million in annual revenue from vanishing into competitor hands. The new HR director, Sarah with an H, delivered it with a smile that made Botox look smug. Freshly imported from some fintech startup that imploded during COVID, she sat across from me in a navy pantsuit with shoulder pads sharp enough to fillet trout and a file folder labeled Legacy Salary Reviews. Like I was some crusty boiler from the Titanic they hadn't had the decency to scrap yet. She didn't even glance at the numbers I brought. The retention stats, the client renewal letters, the referral pipeline I'd kept humming through pure relational jujitsu. Instead, she looked at me the way rich kids stare at waiters. Patiently, like I might eventually stop talking and vanish. Your role, she said, lacing her fingers like a guidance counselor about to recommend community college, is valuable in a historical sense, but we're moving in a more dynamic direction. You're stable, Alex. Predictable. That's not always an asset in fast-growth environments. I had the urge to laugh, or flip the table, or remind her that my predictability was the only reason her salary even cleared last month, thanks to the 3 legacy accounts I salvaged during the company's Q2 panic spiral. But I didn't even blink. Instead, I asked, calm as bourbon over ice. So no raise, not even cost of living. She leaned back like I'd asked her to co-sign a meth lab lease. Unfortunately, no, she replied. And candidly, between us, you're lucky we tolerate you. Others in leadership think your approach is outdated. The silence that followed was so sharp it hummed. I stared at the fake plant behind her head, its dusty leaves tilted toward the fluorescent ceiling like they'd given up too. I don't know what she expected next. Begging? Outrage? A good old-fashioned boomer meltdown? Instead, I smiled. I nodded once, like she'd just confirmed something I'd suspected for a long time. Like a doctor finally naming the tumor that's been growing for years. I stood, tucked my notebook under my arm, said, appreciate the clarity. She blinked, confused, like she didn't realize the damage she'd just done wasn't emotional. It was strategic, because I'd already been building a plan B. Quietly, carefully, piece by piece over the past 18 months. Not out of bitterness, not even fear, just instinct. The kind you develop after 12 years watching the same company throw parades for flashy new hires while the people who did the real work got relegated to budget slides and forgotten thank you emails. I walked out of that room without slamming the door. No dramatics, no threats. But in my pocket, my phone buzzed. A calendar reminder I'd set 2 months ago. Nadine follow-up. If they say no. I tapped it, opened a new message, typed one word. Ready. Then I turned off notifications. And for the first time in over a decade, I walked out of that building with no badge, no bonus, and no leash. The resignation letter was 12 words long. No flowery language. No guilt-ridden paragraphs. Just the required notice period, my last working day, and a politely signed, Best, Alex. I printed it on the same recycled paper HR used for birthday memos and stuck it under my manager's mousepad before anyone else clocked in. By 8:17 a.m., I was on the 6th floor, sipping bitter coffee from a chipped mug that read, Q4 or bust, watching my soon-to-be former team roll in with the enthusiasm of livestock. Same stale energy. Same recycled pep talk playlists leaking from AirPods. Nobody noticed I wasn't logged into Slack. At 8:53, my manager, Brent, who once referred to me as the client whisperer in a town hall and then demoted my bonus bracket the same week, finally wandered over. He looked at the letter, squinted like it was in Morse code, and said, "Wait, you're resigning." I nodded. He blinked, processing, before delivering what might have been the most unintentionally funny thing I'd heard all quarter. "Oh, okay. I mean, you've been here a while, but we'll manage." No sadness, no curiosity, not even fake concern. Just a shrug, like I'd canceled a lunch meeting, Not handed in the keys to 12 years of client intel, contract nuance, and back-channel context that made our renewals run smoother than Brent's hair gel. He slapped my shoulder like we'd just run into each other at Lowe's and said, "Let's catch up before your last day? Yeah? Grab a beer or something." "Sure," I said, already forgetting his face. By noon, IT had removed me from the internal drive. No call. No exit interview. HR sent me a cut-and-paste checklist with "please return all company property," highlighted in Comic Sans. They didn't even realize my work laptop was 5 years old and personally upgraded with a second SSD, on my own dime. After their procurement team ghosted me for 6 months, I boxed it anyway, along with a few desk items no one would want. A cracked mug, a stress ball shaped like a brain, and a paperweight from our long-dead Phoenix client. Ironically, the one account I saved twice from jumping ship. At 4:02 p.m., I paused by the elevator, holding the box. No one said goodbye. No small speech. Brent didn't even look up from his monitor. He was too busy slacking someone about Q3 pipeline projections. As I stepped inside the elevator, a junior rep I used to mentor called out, "Hey, where you heading?" "Forward," I said, smiling. The doors closed. I didn't go home. I went to the corner cafe where Nadine and I used to meet back when we were both nobodies, back when we talk about the if. Now it was when. I took out my phone, stared at our last text exchange. January, 3 words. Still planning. Below it, I typed the only word that mattered now. Ready. No reply came for a while. Just the hiss of steamers behind the counter, the smell of over-roasted espresso, and my pulse quietly leveling off. Then the screen lit up. "Come in tomorrow. Use the back entrance. No need for introductions." I placed the phone face down, took a sip of coffee that tasted like closure. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I wasn't tired, I was awake. I didn't bring anything from the old office that mattered, because everything worth taking was already in my head. Nadine didn't hug me. She just handed me a keycard and said, "Welcome to somewhere that doesn't insult your intelligence." The office was smaller than my last one. Tighter layout, louder HVAC, espresso machine that sounded like it was choking on gravel. But the energy? Electric. People moved here. Fast. Focused. Not a single soul pretending to be busy. No fake chuckles in the kitchen. No posters about grit or synergy. Just tension, pressure, purpose. Her desk was covered in dual monitors, sticky notes, and a dying cactus named Gloria. She waved toward the empty corner office with the blinds half down. "That's yours. Glass walls are temporary. We're knocking it down next quarter." I stepped in and saw it. A fresh MacBook, a legal pad, a single post-it on the monitor that said, "No NDAs broken, just brains used." Nadine followed me in. "Your title is Strategic Client Partner, which is a fancy way of saying, rebuild the kingdom however you want. No red tape. You say what you need, we make it happen. You remember the accounts. You remember the pain points. We let that memory make us rich." I opened the laptop, logged in. No Slack. They used something sleeker, cleaner, more secure. My inbox had 2 emails. One from HR, normal onboarding stuff, the other from the CEO. It just read, "Whatever Nadine promised, we'll double it if you deliver." I smiled. The first thing I did wasn't call a single client. It wasn't sending just checking in emails or fake surveys. I opened Google Sheets and made a copy of something I'd been building in my personal drive for the past year. I renamed it Long Game. Inside were nothing but columns. Columns and my memory. Client names redacted. Pain points burned into my brain from 12 years of late-night fire drills and back-channel negotiations. Current contracts publicly accessible. Personal notes coded. Like, Tiffany hates being called Tiff. Her son plays lacrosse. Mention Delaware. Trey doesn't care about price. He cares about not being embarrassed in front of board. Do not involve procurement until Marcy's back from sabbatical. No files. No downloads. Nothing that could be subpoenaed. Just what I knew. And that knowledge? Untouchable. Nadine leaned against the doorway. "You gonna tell me your plan?" "Nope." I said, eyes locked on the spreadsheet. She didn't push. She never did. All right? She grinned. Just give me a heads up when the first domino falls. She left. I sat in silence. My heart wasn't racing, it was locked in. Sharper than it had been in years. No rage. No ego. Just precision. I spent the rest of the day rebuilding. Not pitching. Not poaching. Just positioning. Cross-referencing notes with public reports. Tracking birthdays. Checking for leadership changes. One client at a time. Quietly. Without noise. Without arrogance. By sundown, I had 6 tabs open, 3 draft messages saved in my head, and 1 number circled on a sticky note. Q3 target. 18% migration. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even justice. It was architecture. Rebuilding the house they left to rot. And doing it one remembered detail at a time. First client call was at 6:40 a.m. Not scheduled. Not formal. Just an old contact, Kimberly, VP of Procurement at Pharonix Systems, calling me from her car, Bluetooth crackling as she pulled through a Starbucks drive-thru. Alex? She said, cautious. Morning, Kim. Long time. Yeah. I heard you left. I didn't ask how. Word travels. Especially when you were the one person at the old firm who remembered her daughter's dance competition dates and always made sure onboarding didn't start the same week her fiscal year closed. You land anywhere? She asked, casual. Kept it light. Somewhere quieter. Leaner. Fewer meetings about meetings. A pause. Then, well, if you ever want to catch up, on purely hypothetical terms, I've got 15 minutes next Thursday. That's how it began. Not with a pitch, not with a deck, not even a damn calendar invite. Just conversation. By week's end, I'd taken 8 more calls like it. Always inbound. Always informal. Clients who remembered me. Not for being charming, but for showing up when nobody else did. Clients who had been passed off to newer reps since I left, the kind of reps who called them Bud, and mispronounced their company names during quarterly reviews. They vented. Quietly. Rehearsed lines like, "It's like nobody listens anymore." They raised prices, then cut support. I got 3 follow-ups about a 2-year-old upsell. But nobody noticed we flagged an outage in the dashboard last month. Felt like they were reading from a script. I didn't interrupt. Didn't correct. Didn't sell. I just listened. They filled the silence with their own conclusions. A few didn't need prompting. "If you're building something new," said Craig from Somner Labs, "drop me a line. You were the only one over there who knew how we actually used the product." He paused, then added, "Frankly, I'm not even mad anymore. Just tired." Every note they gave I logged. Not in CRM. Not in any tool. Just in long game. A new column appeared. Pain recurrence. I tagged entries like ignored escalation and generic support emails. Watched them overlap. Watched patterns form. Nadine swung by once with 2 coffees. Leaned in and asked, "How many are pissed?" "More than I thought," I said. "But not mad enough to move yet." She smirked. "Then we make it easier to move." We didn't undercut prices. We didn't dangle discounts like candy at a trade show. No cheap tricks. No stolen tactics. Instead, I mapped their frustrations against what we could offer. One-on-one kickoff calls. Direct lines to real engineers. Flexible renewal timelines built around their actual fiscal structure. Personal, not performative. I sent no mass emails. No LinkedIn blasts. Just quiet notes. Thoughtful nudges. Sometimes just a sentence. "Hey, just saw your new release. Smart pivot. If you want a quieter vendor next quarter." My line's open. No hard sell. Just a door. Unlocked. Left slightly open. And one by one they started walking through it. Some took weeks. Others called back the same day. I didn't celebrate. Didn't spike the football. I just updated the spreadsheet. Watched the map grow. And quietly checked off the names of clients I used to serve, now serving again. This wasn't revenge. This was remembrance. Every switch was a story retold correctly. One whispered truth at a time. The first tremor didn't come with sirens. It came on a Tuesday morning, tucked inside a green highlighted cell on the monthly churn report, buried between irrelevant metrics and auto-generated trendlines. One name, one client, off the books. But it wasn't just any client. It was Pharonix Systems, Kimberly's team. 12-year account, platinum tier, annual contract paid in full every January like clockwork. Always renewed 30 days early. Always vocal about their partnership. Now, disengaged. Internal notes read, client evaluating other options. May revisit in Q4. When the VP of Sales, Brent's best friend and golf buddy, scrolled past it during the Wednesday sync, he let out a small, dismissive snort. Probably just a budgeting cycle mismatch, he said. Seasonal volatility. Happens every year. Didn't. Finance flagged it. Raised a brow at the missing revenue. But nothing exploded. Not yet. The second tremor came the following Monday. Somner Labs, Craig's company. Instead of renewing their enterprise package, they filed a support ticket asking how to export historical reports and download archived user logs. Then came the formal email. We've decided not to renew this cycle. Appreciate the past support. No explanation. No feedback form. Just gone. Brent actually laughed in the team meeting. I mean, look, no offense to Alex or whatever, but we wanted to modernize that portfolio anyway. Clients stuck in legacy packages are more of a drag than a driver. HR, never one to miss a chance to clink glasses with management, chimed in. Well, maybe we should have given him that raise, the new director quipped, sipping from her people-first tumbler. Nervous chuckles. Nobody laughed hard, because now the dashboard had a pattern. 2 names gone. 1 delayed renewal. 2 tagged as price-sensitive. Support tickets started piling up like weeds after a thunderstorm. Can I speak with someone who understands our configuration? This new rep keeps confusing us with a different client. We've escalated 3 times with no resolution. Behind closed doors, someone finally whispered the name. Alex. Not shouted. Not blamed. Just murmured. Like an old ghost whose footsteps you're just beginning to notice again. But me? I didn't feel anything. I was too deep in the map. Long game was growing. The spreadsheet now had full customer journey arcs, before and after snapshots of each client's treatment post-departure. Nadine passed my desk with a new onboarding checklist in her hand. You see this? She asked, holding it up. Pharonix. Already in implementation. We hadn't even signed a public announcement. But the word was out. Clients talked. Even when reps didn't. Especially when reps didn't. We're being quiet about these, she said. At your request. But they're noticing. I nodded. Still focused. Already updating the note fields for the next 3 accounts showing signs of fatigue. One had a new CO. Another just switched ticketing platforms. The third? Recently laid off their entire client success team and moved everything to AI chatbots. I didn't celebrate the churn. I didn't need to, because the panic was already starting. And I knew the moment they'd stop laughing was the moment the dashboard turned red. The email hit finance first. Subject: urgent. Q3 forecast recalibration needed. Buried inside, a revised revenue projection showing a $3.1 million shortfall. $3 million. Gone. Evaporated into delayed renewals, unexpected churn, and that deadly euphemism, client realignment. The VP of Sales tried to spin it in his weekly roundup. We're seeing turbulence from macroeconomic headwinds. Let's align on an action plan. But finance didn't give a damn about headwinds. They cared about math. And the math said someone had royally screwed the pipeline. By Friday, the meetings turned. No more smiles. No more let's circle back. Just cold looks and quiet spreadsheets, passed around like autopsy reports. Marketing was the first to get throat punched. The VP's voice rose an octave as he jabbed at the flatline graph. Where are the leads? You spent $200,000 this quarter and conversions dropped. What the hell are you even doing? Marketing fired back. Maybe leads don't convert when sales forgets how to close, or when client success lets 3 platinum clients rot without a check-in. That's when the gloves came off. Operations blamed sales. Sales blamed marketing. Marketing threw support under the bus. Support accused HR of overhiring junior reps with no product knowledge. HR blamed retention culture. Then someone brought up Alex. It was like breaking a taboo. The room went still. One manager muttered, "I mean, you don't think this is about him, right?" The VP scoffed. "Please, we replaced him with 3 reps. We're just seeing a seasonal dip." But that seasonal dip now had a timestamp and a name. Because the real blow came not from a client but a partner. Nexus One, a white label integration partner they'd worked with for years, called Brent directly. The tone was icy. "Hey," the partner rep said, "we just need clarity. Are you sunsetting support for Pharonix and Somner? Because we're being asked to update our connectors for a competing solution. One that's already onboarding." Brent froze. "What competing solution? You don't know?" The rep asked, genuinely confused. "Well, it's your former guy, Alex. Looks like he's heading that unit now. Just wanted to confirm it's not hostile so we don't get caught in any crossfire." Click. Brent didn't answer. He walked straight into the CEO's office, pale as a spreadsheet in the dark. At the same time, in a smaller, colder room across town, I was sipping lukewarm tea and reviewing my long game dashboard. I had just tagged Nexus One in green, confirmed migration complete. Nadine peeked in. "They know yet. They're starting to." She grinned. "Want me to leak the next onboarding stat?" "No," I said without looking up. "Let them figure it out the hard way." Truth was, I felt nothing. No spike of adrenaline. No thrill. Just satisfaction. Cold. Measured. The kind that builds slowly, like water rising beneath a locked door. They were spiraling now. Not because of anything illegal. Not because I took something that wasn't mine. But because they finally realized what they dismissed wasn't replaceable. And I was just getting started. I opened the next tab. 3 more clients. Each with a renewal date inside the next 60 days. I clicked to sell. Typed 5 words. Intro call scheduled. High interest. The boardroom smelled like oversteeped tea and corporate panic. 12 leather chairs, 9 filled. The CEO at the head of the table. Sleeves rolled like he'd just come from battle, though the only war he'd fought that morning was with his password reset link. The CFO flanked him, face unreadable, fingers templed like she was preparing to deliver last rites to the quarter. The quarterly forecast was bleeding out in real time. Red rose on the screen. Margins slashed. Pipeline dried up like beef jerky left in a car. Every number flanked by a note. Non-renewal, delayed, inactive. The VP of sales stammered through his slides. "We believe this is just a market anomaly. Some sectoral volatility from delayed budget releases and decision-maker turnover." "Spare us?" growled one of the board members. Don. The only one who didn't bring a laptop. Just a yellow legal pad and a deep suspicion of digital excuses. "You're down $3 million in renewals, and it's September." The room shifted. The head of product, trying to be helpful, chimed in. "It could be competition. There's been some buzz about agile entrants, smaller firms swooping in. Maybe they're just hungrier than us." Then, from the corner, soft like an accidental gunshot, a junior analyst raised her hand. Nobody noticed her before. Amanda, 2 years in, always present, never loud. She cleared her throat. "Sorry. I noticed something while reconciling CRM records with last year's account notes." 9 heads turned. She pushed her glasses up and continued, "Every major account we've lost or flagged as at risk this quarter, every single one, was managed by Alex Whitman last year." The silence that followed was feral. The kind that makes your blood pressure drop just to hear it. The CEO blinked. "Alex?" he scoffed. "You think this is about Alex? Come on." He was middle tier. Solid, sure, but hardly irreplaceable. "We've got depth on the bench." Amanda didn't argue. She just turned her laptop toward the room. A spreadsheet, built off her own initiative, showed 27 accounts cross-referenced with performance metrics from the previous 18 months. Win rates, satisfaction scores, Escalation resolution times. All better objectively under one name, Alex. Even worse, in the current status column, more than half of those accounts had moved to one competitor. A competitor whose client services division now listed Alex Whitman as senior strategic partner. No one spoke. One board member leaned back slowly, steepling his fingers. Another ran a hand through his hair and whispered, "Jesus." The CEO tried to recover. Okay, even if some clients followed him, what's the exposure here? He can't take contracts. We've got NDAs. NDAs protect assets, the CFO said. They don't protect incompetence. Do we even know what he took? Someone asked. Nothing, Amanda replied. He took nothing. He didn't need to. That landed like a brick in a stained glass window. It was the first time they said his name in that building without mockery. Not with irritation, but fear. Alex. Suddenly, he wasn't that stable guy. He wasn't quiet background noise. He was a pattern, an infection they didn't detect until it metastasized. The CEO tried one last deflection. Let's not get carried away. We're still strong. We've got plenty of loyal clients. The CFO cut in sharply. If one more jumps this week, we'll breach the investor threshold. You want to explain that to the fund. The CEO went silent. No one looked at each other, because they all knew, deep down, that this wasn't a coincidence. It was a message, and it was still being written. The email from HR arrived at 2:06 p.m. Subject line, Exploratory Consulting Opportunity. Sender. Sarah with an H, still apparently clinging to her swivel chair while the floor collapsed beneath her. It was 4 paragraphs of corporate fluff. Hope you're well. We recognize your unique historical value. Leadership would be open to a conversation about transitional advisory roles. Tucked in between the euphemisms was the real plea. Help us stop the bleeding. Quietly, off the books. I stared at the screen for a full minute before typing 3 words. I already am. No sign-off. No clarification. No offer of scheduling links or hourly rates. Just the truth. Because I was consulting. Just not for them. Across town, Nadine slid a printed email across my desk. Investor memo. Leaked internally, forwarded anonymously. Top line, operational confidence shaken. Requesting executive accountability. Translation, someone's about to be fed to the wolves. And that's exactly what happened. By Friday, layoffs began, quiet at first. A few middle managers transitioned. A marketing director decided to pursue new opportunities. One of the client success VPs resigned for personal reasons. But then the panic memo leaked. Real internal circulation this time. 5 bullet points. 0 emotion. Stop the churn. Identify all remaining at-risk accounts. Do not acknowledge competitor migration publicly. Contact legacy clients for relationship repair. Do not, under any circumstances, mention Alex Whitman by name. That last line made Nadine laugh so hard she nearly spilled her coffee. Did they seriously name you in a do not engage order? She asked. Apparently I've gone nuclear, I said, updating the long game spreadsheet with 3 new green tags. Re-engaged. Verbal committed. In procurement. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't even celebrating. The satisfaction wasn't loud. It was mathematical, clinical. The more chaos they produced, the more clarity I had. Because every time they moved out of fear, they confirmed the same truth they spent years denying. I mattered. Not because I was loud. Not because I had titles or shares or shout-outs in town halls. But because I remembered. I remembered what they forgot, that people don't stay loyal to platforms or pricing tiers. They stay loyal to the ones who return their calls at 8 p.m. on a Friday. The ones who say, I've got you, and mean it. They thought they were running a company. They were really just managing churn until the roof caved in. And now they wanted me back. As if the same man they dismissed, "You're lucky we tolerate you," would ever come clean up their blood-soaked ledgers. But I wasn't angry. Anger implies emotion. This was colder than that. Sharper. This was memory weaponized with patience. Let them spiral. I wasn't in the building anymore. I was in the foundation. The quarter closed like a guillotine. No fanfare. No press release. Just a final spreadsheet, raw, brutal, surgical, circulated at 7:42 a.m. with the subject line, Q3 final churn and revenue variance. Confidential. It read like an obituary. Client churn, 46.3%. Revenue shortfall, $7.2 million. Emergency burn reduction plan, activated. There was no salvaging the story. The board had already been briefed. The major investors, some of whom hadn't spoken in years, were now on a warpath. One email, leaked and forwarded 6 times before it landed on Nadine's desk, contained just a single directive. Find out who said he was lucky to be tolerated. That was the exact phrasing. No punctuation, no signature, just fury, condensed into vengeance. They found her, of course, Sarah with an H. Relieved of duties, effective immediately, read the internal memo. No farewell lunch, no balloon arch, just silence. The VP of Sales resigned 2 days later to pursue new opportunities, though insiders whispered about the severance clause being contingent on non-litigation. No one cared, because by then the rival firm, our firm, had already posted Q3 results. Client growth, plus 29%. Retention, 99%. Net new enterprise contracts, 17. Division head, Alex Whitman. They didn't blast it in headlines. Just a quiet PDF uploaded to the investor portal with a photo of our modest, glass-walled conference room and one sentence underneath. Built on trust. Grown through service. Meanwhile, back at the old company, the death spiral had officially begun. Headcount reductions. PR scrub campaigns. Internal morale webinars delivered by third-party consultants who mispronounced the company name halfway through the deck. They still didn't know how I did it. No stolen data. No poaching. No lawsuits. Just relationships. Memory. Consistency. That's all it took. And now, the very thing they mocked, the outdated approach, the predictable strategy, was being rebranded as revolutionary. Their competitors were quietly adapting to our style, emulating the thing they discarded. Nadine walked into my new office as I was finalizing our Q4 rollout. Sunlight spilled through the glass. The espresso machine wheezed behind her. "Thought you'd want to see this," she said, handing over a copy of the churn memo from our old employer. I didn't read it, just glanced at the number in red ink at the top. 46.3%. Then I pushed it aside and returned to the dashboard on my screen. New accounts, new targets, clean slate. She lingered a moment longer, then smiled. "You're really not going to say anything?" I turned to her, same calm expression as always. "I already did," I said. "They just didn't hear it at the time." She nodded and left, and I sat there for a moment longer, quiet, still, watching the city move outside the window, chaotic and brilliant and forgetful. But not me. I remembered everything, because in the end, they were right about one thing. I was predictable, just not in the way they thought. Turns out luck had nothing to do with it, just memory and patience.